Welcome to the Western Bell podcast series, with talks on traditional spiritual teaching and its application in the world today. The intention of the series is to offer something useful for those who are drawn to study themselves and engage practice on the spiritual path. New talks are posted twice each month. The content of the talks is for informational purposes only, and not to provide any kind of counseling, medical, or professional advice. This podcast is titled, Present Attention is Objective Love. The talk was given by Red Hawk on October 19th, 2024 via Zoom. Red Hawk is an acclaimed poet and the author of 13 books, including Self-Observation, Self-Remembering, The Way of the Wise Woman, Return to the Mother, and Book of Lamentations. He begins the talk with an invocation of divine help for this space, using the names of Yogi Ram Surat Kumar and Lee Lozowick, who are spiritual masters in the school he is part of, and with an exercise that involves working with the body and present attention. Red Hawk states that the being that occupies the body has two qualities, presence and attention. He says that the present is the domain of the divine, of love, and that ego does not want present attention. It wants identified attention. Red Hawk speaks about considerations that can be useful to reflect on, apply, and verify in our own experience on the path, including mechanical versus conscious or second attention, chief feature and chief weakness, masculine and feminine energy, conscience, remorse, love as the supreme intelligence, and effortless effort. If there is benefit in this talk for you, please consider sharing the link to it or writing a review on social media or on one of the podcast platforms. Red Hawk.
I begin with the law of invocation, always. And I do that because the law of invocation allows for a special kind of help. The good master Jesus taught the law of invocation this way: where two or more are gathered in my name, there will I be also. And when Jesus said, my and I, it wasn't Jesus of Nazareth who was speaking, it was the divine. Whenever two or more are gathered in my name, there will I be also. And so I am of the school of Yogi Ram Surat Kumar and Mr. Lee. In our school, the name of Yogi Ram Surat Kumar is one of the names that invokes the divine. So when I do the law of invocation, I use the name of Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, which I'll do now. Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Jai Guru Raya, Anjaneya Kepali, Anjaneya Kepali, Anjaneya Kepali, Jai Guru Raya. Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Yogi Rama Surat Kumar, Jai Guru Raya. What the law of invocation does is it creates special circumstances. It creates a divinely sourced, conscious, empowered, invocational work chamber in which the divine, by law, is obligated to enter and respond. There will I be also. So it doesn't depend on me because, thank God, I'm not capable, but the divine is. And so my job in a work chamber is to try to stay out of the way, not interfere, to receive in the feminine mode, to accept the help which is available. I want to begin with a warning. I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the mammal sickness. The sickness of the mammal is in belief systems, in blind trust, following, extreme suggestibility, and the curse of imagination, mechanical imagination. So mammals are herd animals, and they always seek an alpha male or female to lead them. The work teaches that humans in the mechanical state are highly suggestible, will believe anything they're told. They don't think for themselves, the herd thinks for them. And we see this constantly in the political arena, in the mechanical world in general. So I ask you to beware of the tendency of the mammal mind to make me something important, to make me something special, to make me a teacher or a guru or a master. All those are wrong. I'm none of those. And I ask you then to not believe what I have to say tonight. If I say something which interests you, which creates in you some vibratory response, that's the point at which one should begin to investigate for oneself and verify by direct experience, by personal experience, what's true and not true. I ask you not to trust me, not to trust what I have to say, but to verify everything for yourself. The subject under consideration tonight is, quote, present attention is objective love. This is a radical statement because it completely changes one's relationship to reality. This particular teaching radically changes the idea of love as we are taught it and programmed to believe it. Objective love is not emotional love. It's not sexual love. It's not romantic love. It's not individual or personal love. It's impersonal. But present attention is objective love is an action. It's not a philosophy. And I'm asked to give a talk on this, which means that I have to use words, and words are not actions. So what one needs is a direct experience of what it means to be present as attention. One needs an action. One needs an experience of present attention. So I'm going to begin with an action. And if you wish to work with me, then I'll ask you, wherever you are, to just stand and work first with posture. So that both feet on the ground, one straightens the spine, tries to sense the spine, and straightens the posture, not rigid, not tense, but upright, placing the head directly over the top of the spine so there's an alignment. Because we're working now with becoming present attention. So erect posture is important in this respect because posture evokes mood. And erect posture immediately takes me out of the mechanical world and places me in the more conscious world. Zen Buddhism calls erect posture the awakened form. We're working to arouse a second attention. So humans have two possibilities for attention. One is the mechanical attention, which every sentient being is born with. Mechanical attention is subject to all kinds of distractions, but it gets us through life, hopefully, in one piece. Mechanical attention gets me from point A to point B, hopefully without incident. I may not be able to tell you anything that happened between point A and point B because the mind wanders. But the mechanical attention is able to direct the body, the human biological instrument, safely through. But with erect posture and the placement of the head, so there's an easy alignment, now we can invoke presence. This is the first step in self-remembering, the invocation of presence. And the being who occupies the body has only two qualities, presence and attention. Those are the only two things we have to work with in this reality. Presence and attention. They are all we need to awaken. So I can invoke my presence, which I'm doing with posture, and then I can utilize will of attention. Attention has will. What that means is that it can place itself anywhere that it wishes, inside the body or even outside the body, by an act of will. In this case, one wills the attention out of the head brain and down into the body to the solar plexus or abdomen region. Conscious placement of attention. This is will of attention. When attention relocates itself, that's the second attention. The work calls it. Second attention is conscious attention. It's present attention. It's attention which is unhooked from the head brain and the imagination and identification which so often accompany that placement. Now, let's do a little experimentation with will of attention. If you wish, sense the right arm from shoulder to fingertips. And keeping everything else relaxed, simply tense the right arm from shoulder to fingertips. Tense the right arm. This is sensation. I sense the right arm, its tension, its weight, its place in space. Now relax the right arm. There's sensation still in the right arm. It's not as obvious, it's subtler. Now sense the right leg from buttocks to toe, keeping everything else relaxed. Tense the right leg, buttocks, thigh, calf, toe, and keep everything else relaxed. This is dividing the attention so that I'm aware of two things. I'm aware of the relaxation of the rest of the body and the right leg and its tension. This is sensation. Now relax the right leg. This is a subtler sensation. Sense the right foot now. And you see, attention is moving around the body. Will of attention can move attention wherever it wills. The being is two things, presence and attention. Presence and attention are the only two things it can work with. It's all it has to work with. It's enough. Placement of attention. Now sense the left leg, its weight, the space it occupies, and tense the left leg from buttocks, thigh, calf, toes, and foot. This is sensation. Sensing the left leg. Now relax the left leg. Be aware of the whole body. The left leg has a softer, subtler, finer sensation. It has weight. It occupies space. It's holding the weight of the body. Now sense the left arm from shoulder to fingertip. Just let it hang easily. There's a sensation in the left arm. I can sense it. Now tense the left arm from shoulder to fingertips, keeping everything else relaxed, keeping the head placed over the spine. Sense the left arm. This is sensation. Relax the left arm. This is a finer sensation. Now sense the abdomen and tummy tuck. Just slightly, without too much pressure, pull the abdomen in slightly. And just enough muscular tension to pull it in just slightly. And what I've found is that this tummy tuck, when I'm working with being present, helps me have a little more duration. I can hold attention in the present just a little longer with the awareness of the tummy tuck, the abdomen pulled slightly in. Now tense the chest and the whole front of the body, abdomen, solar plexus, chest. This is sensation. Now relax, keeping the tummy tucked, keeping the head over the spine, aware of the whole body, really, sensing the whole body. Now be aware of the face, this mask, which I use to present a false front to the world. This malleable mask, forehead, nose, jaw, chin, mouth, and how often the jaw is tensed and clenched, how often the brow is furrowed. I'm not aware of the face or the head, mostly in my ordinary mechanical state. Now clench the face, jaw, mouth, brow. This is sensation. Relax it. This is will of attention, moving attention, placement anywhere I wish, anywhere I will, the self, the being, to move around the body. Now I can sense the breath. Attention is embodied now in sensation and breath. Present attention, without judgment, without unnecessary thinking. You'll notice that this allows the thoughts to not wander. Random thinking is stilled, and there's just the breath. Inhalation, exhalation, and radiation. That third thing, radiation, is not what we're taught. We're taught breath is two things, inhalation, exhalation. But what the work teaches us is that the air that we breathe in contains finer substances. Those finer substances can be extracted from the air if attention is present and embodied in breath and sensation. If attention is present, it allows the body to operate in its highest form, which is as an energy transformation instrument. And the body can extract from the air what many traditions have called prana, a subtler, finer, energetic, vibratory form. So on the inhalation, I draw the air in. Exhalation, I expel the waste material while the body has extracted this prana, which then radiates throughout the body to the cells. So if you wish, now try keeping the belly tucked, the head aligned, aware of the whole body. On the inhalation, at the solar plexus, to yourself, say I. On the exhalation, say am, and allow the am to radiate throughout the whole body and into the auric field which surrounds the body. I on the inhalation, am on the exhalation radiation. Stay with that and see if you can sense this radiation of finer pranic energy to the cellular structure. The eyes open, and while you're doing this, be aware of the entire 180-degree periphery. Keep the eyes unfocused, gazing softly, not focusing on anything in particular, taking in the whole of the space which I'm occupying. I am. And what the Gospels teach us is that I am is another of the names of God. We use Yogi Ramsarat Kumar. I am is one of the names of God. Be seated. Present attention is objective. Love is not a theory. It's not just words. It's an experience. So what do we know about the present? Well, one of the things that long study shows is that the present is the domain of the guru, of the master. The present is the domain of love. Love is a living force. It doesn't exist in the past, in memory. It doesn't exist in the future where nothing has happened yet. Nothing is alive in the future. It doesn't exist. Nothing is alive in the past. It's dead, gone. The present is the domain of love. So the present is the domain of the divine. If I want to be in service to the divine, attention has to be present. If I'm not aware of the body, I'm not in the present. I'm identified. If I'm conscious of the body, I'm conscious and present. If I'm not conscious of the body, I'm not present. I'm identified. When I'm present, I can watch. I can see what's happening inside. I can hear what's going on in the inner world. Self-remembering is an action. It's not a theory. The work is an action. It's not words. So when I'm aware of the whole body and relaxed, the whole body becomes a sense organ. It receives energy as impressions. It accepts. It's feminine mode. So the will of attention, the move from the head brain to the solar plexus and the abdomen, that willful move is a masculine move. It's the masculine energy which holds the attention in place down lower in the body. And at that point, the function of the masculine is to remain actively passive, holding attention and not interfering with the incoming impressions. Receiving, feminine mode. It allows the feminine to emerge and to be impregnated with the present, with the divine, whose domain is the present. I'd go so far as to say that the present is the divine. Second attention is conscious attention. It allows me to be present and watch. That's all the being can do, is to be present and watch. This is like the action of wind and water. The action of wind and water on stone is that over a long period of time, the pressure of wind and water wear stone down to grains of sand. Wind and water bring tall mountains down. Presence and attention are like in the inner world, wind and water in the external world. There is the egoic structure. There is this so-called self, which has been created by a small child in order to protect itself and defend itself in a world where there's not wise counsel, wise guidance, and wise help. Master Arnaud Desjardins taught that all of us have this small child who lives at the heart of the emotional center. This small child has created this defense mechanism. The work calls it a chronic defense mechanism, which is always on the alert, always watching and alert to defend itself against the waking state. This defense mechanism, the work calls chief feature. I call it blind spot. The wounded child serves a purpose. It's the function of the wounded child to act as a food source. I use the analogy of the chick in the egg. The embryonic chicken in an egg has to have a food source in order to grow in strength so that it gains the strength finally to break through the shell of the egg. The food source for the embryonic chick in the egg is the yolk. The embryonic chick consumes the yolk slowly, little by little, and in so doing grows in strength. On the inside, the egoic structure, this wounded child, is the yolk for the being. By the simple application of present attention, watching, just being present and watching, not identified, not judging, not trying to change, simply watching the action of the egoic structure. Slowly, little by little, the egoic structure gives up its energy to attention and presence, to the being. The being consumes that yolk. This is not really a small child, of course. We're talking about an energetic structure, an egoic structure. By being present and watching, the being slowly consumes that yolk until it gains enough strength and presence and stability to break through the hold that identification has on it. Wind and water. All that's required for me, the being, to awaken and grow, to evolve, is to be present and watch the unfolding of this ego structure. But if you've tried, as all of us have, over many years to be present, you know that how difficult it is because attention is weak. The second attention has to be fed in order to evolve and grow to the point where it can become stable. Mechanical attention can't evolve. It's very unstable. It's easily taken by imagination and identification constantly. So the great majority of the human race lives a life of constant distraction, constant identification, and imagination. We see this everywhere around us in wars, in violence of all kinds, in politics. We see how easily the human race is distracted and taken by imagination and by identification as mammals with some supposed alpha leader who will lead us to the promised land and save us from ourselves. I am here now. I am alive. Love is a living thing. It exists only as a present phenomenon. The divine is a living force. It exists only as the present phenomena. So the revelation, present attention is objective love, came about as an action. And it was helped by certain revelations. When the being is ready, help comes. So the first help came from this profound teaching of Yogi Ramsurat Kumar, only God. There is only God. There is nothing but God. It's a profound teaching. Now, borrowing from Joan Ruvinsky, who said something like, it's not that God made the universe out of something somewhere outside of itself. There was nothing outside of itself. There was no thing God used to make the universe and all living things. There was only God, which was Yogi Ram Surat Kumar's teaching. So out of itself, God made everything. There's nothing outside of God. There's no thing outside of God. There's no where outside of God. There's only God. This is a profound teaching of Yogi Ram Surat Kumar. And if I struggle with it, if I make effort to have the experience of it, the action of that, and please, I ask you as you listen to these words, because words are not actions, but it's possible that one can do more than just listen with one's mechanical listening. I refer to the good Master Jesus again, who, when he gave a Dharma talk, always ended his Dharma talks in the same way, with this very curious statement: let those who have ears to hear, hear, and those who have eyes to see, see. So he was making a distinction between listening, which is mechanical, and hearing, and working with this because it always interested me. Not always, for a long time it's interested me. Experimenting, I began to see that if attention is present, embodied in breath and sensation, hearing is a whole body process. I don't hear just from the head brain. I receive vibratory, energetic impressions from the sound of the voice, from the words themselves. I'm making effort to speak to you from a place lower down in the body, not just from the head brain. I'm making effort to allow the vibratory energy of words to come from the solar plexus and the abdomen, and I'm making effort to feel the vibration of the words in my whole body as an energetic phenomenon. So I can hear with the whole body. I can receive the vibrations, which is all words are, is energetic vibratory energy, in the whole body. Not trying to catalog, categorize, or understand, but receptive, feminine. So we have this Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, only God. And we have this understanding that God made every living thing and every inanimate thing. God made the worlds out of itself. Try to hold those two things. There's only God. Therefore, God is in everything and God is everything. Then I quote Paula Darcy. Paula Darcy is a Christian mystic. Quote, God comes to us disguised as our life. The life force is God. God is the life force that animates this form. God is the life force that animates the tree, the stone, the river, the grass, the animals, the viruses, the atoms, the cells, the molecules. God is a vibratory, electrical, molecular force, the life force. And then we get this good Master Jesus who changed the way that the human race viewed God by this simple teaching: God is love. That completely changed Hebraic view of God as a punisher, as judgmental, as something to be feared. Jesus turned that on its head. God is love. And I can tell you, frankly, my friends, and this is my own experience, I don't know what yours is, but I can tell you that my experience is nothing in my life has ever given me reason to doubt that. My own direct personal experience has verified that God is love, that the present is love. The present is the domain of love. So if God is love, then Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar's teaching can be modified to say there's only the love of God. Everything is made from the love of God. And then we can take Paula Darcy's statement and modify it to say the love of God comes to us disguised as our life. The love of God comes to us disguised as our life. There is only the love of God because God is love. Well, then why is there violence and evil? Because the human biological instrument in its mechanical state receives this divine descending love current which animates the body. It passes through the egoic structure, the mammal mind, and is distorted, changed, altered, contaminated by my will. And my will, the will of this so-called entity that calls itself me, myself, has its own will. And its will is to exert whatever desire it presently has, and desires change constantly. But it wants what it wants, when it wants it, and how it wants it. The good Master Jesus gave this teaching, not my will, thy will be done. And for many years, it puzzled me. How can I know what the will of God is? Not my will, thy will be done. How can thy will be done if I don't know what thy will is? Well, many, many years in the work, self-observation, self-remembering, have awakened in me what the work calls conscience. Conscience is a very small feeling, not words. It's a very small feeling, easily overrun by the will of the ego, the will of the me, which is desire. But conscience, once it's awakened, begins to exert an influence, at first very small, easily overrun by the will of the me. It doesn't judge, it doesn't condemn, it doesn't criticize, it doesn't speak, it only feels. It's a still, small feeling. It's a still, no words, small, easily overturned by desire, feeling. And when I began to study the influence of conscience over a long period of time, I began to see conscience is never wrong. It's always right. Conscience is always right. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I had a feeling if I did that, that was going to happen. I knew that was the wrong thing to do. Being knows the influence of conscience, but it's overrun, overpowered, easily. But I began to see that it's never wrong. It's always right. And my question was, how can this something in me be always right? And where is it directing me? It's a compass, always pointing towards true north. And what was true north? I began to wonder, and by direct experience, I began to learn that true north, where conscience always points, is towards non-judgmental love. Conscience is the compass that points towards love. All right, well, what is love? Objective love is God, the divine. So conscience always points me towards objective love, which is the love of God. And when I violate that, which I do, conscience doesn't speak and it doesn't condemn or judge, it only suffers. And when conscience suffers, it suffers what we call remorse. The work calls it remorse. Remorse is one of the most powerful transformative agents. It's divine. It comes from the divine. It's God's love which suffers. My will is responsible for the suffering of the divine in me. We are taught from the Gospels that we are made in its image, in the image of God. Well, all right. That means the being is made in the image of the divine. The being has only two qualities, presence and attention. Therefore, presence and attention must be the attributes of the love of God. Therefore, present attention, watching, present and watching are all that's needed to begin to feed on the egoic structure. The first law of matter is energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transformed. I'd like to modify that by saying energy is neither created or destroyed, it's only transferred. All right, so the work teaches us there are three kinds of food: physical food, air, and impressions. And it's the food of impressions which is the yolk from which the being feeds, if it's not identified with those impressions. Identification is the only problem, Mr. Lee taught. The only problem is identification. When the being is present and watching, not identified, not judging, not trying to change anything. It's like the action of wind and water on stone. It's the action of presence and attention on the desires of the me. There has to be a transfer of energy. If I identify with the incoming or arising impressions, that I, whichever I is present at that moment, it captures and consumes attention, and it grows stronger. If the masculine holds attention in place and is actively still, doesn't move in identification or imagination, and the impression arises, now the egoic structure has to give up its energy to attention. A transfer happens. And that food is being food. And the being grows and evolves. This is how the being feeds. The application of present attention to whatever arises externally or internally, slowly, and with great patience, repairs the wound, the flaw, which is chief feature. It heals, it changes, and it corrects whatever is out of alignment with the love of God. So that in the awakened state, the human body, no me, myself, is just an empty vessel. It's just a hollow vessel through which the love of God descends, passes into the human body. The energy from the earth arises, so they got descending and ascending energy, and they meet, and they're totally different forces. And only in the presence of a catalyst, which is presence and attention, not identified, allows those two forces to blend and create a whole new energetic force, which we can call objective love, which radiates transformed in the body. Body is allowed to operate in its highest function as an energy transformation instrument. It radiates this objective love out into the auric atmosphere, into the field of awareness of which it is a part. It feeds the earth, this finer energy. It feeds all entities above us in scale on the angelic level, the sun, all the way to our Creator. And a portion of that transformed energy remains in the biological instrument as being food. All that's required of me to serve the will of God, the love of God, is to be present and watch. Sounds easy. Difficult, because I am constantly identified with incoming impressions or impressions arising from thought and emotion. With me, there's chief feature and there's chief weakness. The chief weakness is what defends the chief feature. It's the chronic defense mechanism. Mr. Lee pinpointed my chief weakness many years ago. And one time I walked in, I bowed to Mr. Lee, and I looked away and began to look for a place to sit. And Mr. Lee said out loud, "Red Hawk is lost in thought." And it took me years to understand that he had identified my chief weakness. That distraction which keeps me identified, which prevents the love of God from radiating through the instrument and being transformed. But when the love of God is not interfered with by thought or emotion, not identified with the impression is transformed by the body, a third force between the arising and the descending forces when they blend. And I'm going to call that what is created by this transformation. I'm going to call it adoration. And I will tell you frankly that I'm not immune to identification by any means, but I adore conscience, because a conscience is the love of God, and it is beautiful. All it's required of me is to be present and watch. And the more I understand present attention as objective love, the more willing I am to be present and watch. So I'm going to give you one more example, then I'm going to take some questions if you have them. I've worked with a small group of people. We work on presence and attention together. And last week in our meeting, we identified every one of us owned to the fact that during the night, in the middle of the night, we would wake up besieged by thought and emotion, overwhelmed by this onslaught of the egoic structure. Well, this is the chronic defense mechanism at work. It uses the time when I am most vulnerable, because in the daytime, it doesn't have as much power. So when I'm asleep and I awaken suddenly, there's the onslaught, trying to regain its power of identification, to regain its control over attention and presence. Well, I got interested in that because we all confessed that we had this going on in the middle of the night. And so last night and the night before, I was very interested to see about this. And Yogi Ramsar Kumar using that name, which can help me be more present. But there began the onslaught both nights. And I wanted to see if I could bring the love of God to that onslaught. And so I just watched with attention embodied in breath and sensation. I watched and I watched and I watched. And I tried not to identify. But if I identified as quickly as possible, I began again to watch, to be present and watch. And I saw this transformation happen of this energetic phenomenon, this onslaught of thought and emotion. The emotions were memories from the mammal's personal history, memories from childhood, memories from all kinds of things that usually get and hook attention in identification. And slowly that energy shifted both nights, and there was softness. I saw the transformation of energy. All right, so today I woke up and the me was in a mood. The mood was fear, depression, anxiety. On and off all day long, I've been watching that and letting it be, just being present and watching. It's allowed me to speak to you, to talk to you. It's allowed me to pull together some things that have helped me. I'll ask you now, how do you understand what's been said? What are your observations? What is your experience, if you have that? What questions do you have?
Well, what I can say is that it's always there. There's always this place that I can come to, back to my stillness.
Yes.
And that way I am able to be present in the moment, and then all the anguish or whatever the situation is dissipates.
It's transformed. It changes, doesn't it?
Yes.
You see, I think there's nothing in the universe which can resist forever the love of God. To bring the love of God to anything that arises, to me, it's so beautiful when I understood this. Present attention is the love of God. So when I can be present and watch, I'm simply bringing the love of God to bear on anything. It's the great transformative agent. And what you said about this place of stillness, it's in me.
Yes, it's there always.
Always. It's always still and watching. The love of God is never anywhere but in me, and it's always watching and waiting for me to join it. I don't know about you, but I adore this. It's such a relief. It's so beautiful to me. It's always waiting for me to be in relationship with it.
Yeah,
it's never anywhere but here.
And what I realize is that sometimes this influence that doesn't want me to be there, the influence from life, the mechanical influence from life doesn't want me to be there. And so it's always like a decision that you have to make. You
Yes.
have to put yourself in the place to make it, if you can.
Yeah, it's a conscious decision, isn't it?
It's a constant decision, yes.
And then I begin again, because I'm always a beginner. When I'm present, I can only be a beginner.
Yes.
Because I always begin from the present, and I begin, and then I join, and then God does the rest. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar. I'll say one other thing about the body. This body was named by two strangers, mother and father. They named it Bob Moore. Other forces at one point named it Red Hawk. There is no Bob Moore. There is no Red Hawk. They don't exist. They're all identification and imagination. This body is a hollow instrument, which the love of God is meant to use as a food source. And the being simply allows, receives feminine. This work is feminine. The work of the being is feminine work. The masculine has a place. It moves attention down, will, and then not my will, thy will is allowed to enter. My will is held in place and is still. Questions, comments, experiences, observations.
So I think if I understood it right, you said the being is present and attention.
Yes.
Okay. So does the being have its own intelligence? Because acting love would be a behavior from being. The being would have to have some kind of intelligence to perform the act of love, even being present.
Several things. One, love is the supreme intelligence. Love is the intelligence of the divine. Love is the great intelligence. The being is the love of God. So the being which is not identified, the being which does not interfere, is allowing the supreme intelligence to operate the human biological instrument. And it is directed by that supreme intelligence. Not my will, thy will is supreme intelligence. My will is ignorance. My will is complete denial.
So the supreme intelligence is working through us.
Absolutely so.
Okay.
And all that's required of me is that I be present and watch and not interfere. And the supreme intelligence will then work through me to the creation, to the life of the world. And that supreme intelligence is only kind, only generous, only forgiving, only compassionate. That's the supreme intelligence at work in my experience. I don't mean to speak for God or anything like that. I'm just telling you, this is what I have seen from my own experience.
I could see that too.
Thank you, Yogi Ram
you.
Surat Kumar.
You said that all that's required is to be present and watch.
Yes.
And I recall Mr. Gurdjieff speaking about super efforts. And it's always seemed to me that I have to make some efforts, maybe to develop some discipline, not just to lay back and not work, even just attention to the body, but also to develop some discipline within myself so that my mind just isn't completely unruly all the time. Anything that you would say about that, about watching and being present versus
efforts? What is effort?
Mm-hmm.
This is a good question. I'm going to turn to Zen Buddhism for a response because it has such valuable information. Zen Buddhism calls the move from the head brain to the solar plexus or abdomen the journey of a single step. Isn't that a wonderful way of saying it? It's a journey. One step takes me from the mechanical world to the conscious world, to the present. Zen Buddhism calls that move the effortless effort. Now there's a koan, which a person can only unravel by direct experience, not my words. The effortless effort is the will of attention moving itself from the head brain to the body, to breath and sensation. And the holding of attention in place is a masculine effort. Zen Buddhism calls it the effortless effort. Well, why is it effortless effort? Because I wish to do it. I wish to serve the love of God. I adore that love. So holding myself as a being, holding I am in place, effortless effort because it's driven by adoration, not by my will. My will moves that attention down, holds it so that the will of God can have access. Effortless effort. It's worth investigating what that sensation is. Effortless effort. What is the action of my work? What is the experience of this work? Thank you, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar.
This is bringing a question about strengthening attention.
Yes.
The discovery, the reminder daily of how weak attention is in me. And super effort, there's a relationship in the way I try.
Yeah.
To strengthen attention requires not a casual approach.
Definitely.
Does that effort to strengthen attention, does that come from ego? Feeling like it needs something that it doesn't have?
Well, it might, but so what? I might start from some egoic wish to be better or different. But the actual getting at it, the undertaking of work with attention.
I think that's just important, what you said. It might start there. Maybe that's where we start, but it evolves or something about it becomes different.
Starting from this me to get down in the dirt and work, that moves me to a different place.
And the me does not want present attention. It wants identified attention. It's the only way it can thrive. So the move to be present as attention moves in a different direction than the me. And that move is effort. So I don't know about super effort. I don't know if that move is super effort. That move to not go with the power of identification, which the me wants, but to place attention in the service of the love of God. Maybe that move alone is what's meant by super effort, but also to hold it there. All right, so the move is effort. To hold it there may be what we are talking about as super effort. That is, to hold it longer than a single moment, to keep it stable and in place longer than one instant, requires intention, wish, help, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, to stay in place, to remain stable. Super effort. But I'm not sure that that is what I want to remain with, because that super effort is from the love of God. It's from the love of conscience. It's from the love of the work. And so super effort has as its force behind it love, adoration even. So it's not just my effort. There it is.
Now my.
It's not my. It's being in conjunction with God and the love of God working together to hold something in place. That's what super effort must mean to me. That's a revelation right there. Thank you, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar. Say something.
Oh, I'm working with these considerations, and I feel like I have to come to my own realization about what that means.
Yes, sir.
Making efforts and also just watching and being present. Effortless effort, basically, in the way that you were describing it. What is that?
Yeah. And what I was just given as a way into super effort is it's not the me, it's the being and the divine in harmony and relationship, holding something in place so that the divine can use the body. Super effort is not just from me. It has to be a relationship. I love this. This is really interesting. I had never considered what was just said before, but it opens up a door for me. It's time. Thank you so much, my friends. I'm very, very grateful for your presence, for staying with this. Perhaps there's something that interests you and you wish to explore it, to try to verify and have an experience for yourself. God bless you. Yogi Ram Surat Kumar.
Good night.
Good night.